All right, good evening. Now, we've had a very interesting development in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court today has stayed the conviction of Congress leader and former member of Parliament Rahul Gandhi in the criminal defamation case. Now, to remind you, this is what this case was about. While campaigning, Rahul Gandhi made a statement saying, "How come all thieves have names Modi?" Now, he was then taken to court by one BJP leader who said that he had insulted an entire community of people whose names were Modi. At that point, the Sessions Court found him guilty and sentenced him to 2 years in jail. Now, because he was sentenced to 2 years in jail, he then was disqualified by Parliament and he's no longer a member of Parliament. He has then since then appealed to the High Court. The High Court dismissed his appeal, and now he's gone to Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has stayed that particular order and has said very interestingly that the trial court did not give a reason for picking the maximum sentence in this particular case, and because he had picked the maximum sentence, Rahul Gandhi was disqualified, and because he was disqualified, it was in fact something that needed to be considered because it was not just justice for him but all of the people who voted for him. So this has now been stayed. Joining us right now to help us understand what this means and what is likely to happen next is Mr. Sanjay Hegde, who is a senior advocate with the Supreme Court of India. Mr. Hegde, good evening, and thank you for joining us. My first question to you is this. The case, Rahul Gandhi still has to appeal against the conviction itself, right? All he has got from the Supreme Court is a stay. But does this mean he gets to go back to Parliament?
Yes, he goes back to Parliament. As of now, he is no more a disqualified MP. The moment the shadow of the conviction is taken away, he is again qualified. That's the law. Now, his appeal was pending before the Sessions Court. The Sessions Court granted him a limited stay. It stayed the sentence. That is, he did not have to go to jail immediately. But it did not stay the conviction itself. Without the stay on the conviction, he could not be requalified. He could not be qualified to continue as an MP. So once the Sessions Court declined the stay of the conviction, he went to the High Court. The High Court also declined. He came up in appeal to the Supreme Court, and today the Supreme Court has granted him a stay of conviction.
Yes. But I do want to ask you this now. The question remains is that how long it will take for Rahul Gandhi to be reinstated to his seat in Parliament. Because in the recent precedent we've seen, there was one NCP member of Parliament, Mohammad Faisal's membership that was restored. It took 2 months after the Kerala High Court stayed his conviction that his membership was restored to Parliament. So, Mallikarjun Kharge has asked the question saying after the sentence came, they disqualified him in 24 hours, but will they reinstate him in 24 hours?
Well, I don't think that the Speaker of the Lok Sabha would take the Supreme Court very lightly. And the case that you adverted to, when they did not pass an order for 2 months, then the MP concerned approached the Supreme Court. The matter was going to be heard by the Supreme Court the next day, but the day before the hearing, the Lok Sabha immediately gave a notification which admitted the man back to Parliament. In this particular case, I think that the passing of the notification is a mere ministerial act. It will be done as soon as possible. Maybe they will say that, it's Friday now and everybody's gone home. Saturday, Sunday, nobody works, and maybe Monday morning. But beyond that, would be slow walking it at their own peril.
But really, Mr. Hegde, on one hand, there is the interpretation of the law and what the Supreme Court has said. On the other hand, there's politics. And, politics tends to be fascinating. And as we have come to learn, opportunistic. Because on Tuesday morning, the Lok Sabha will hear, the no confidence motion that has been moved against the government. It is likely, the Prime Minister should, one expects, will attend Parliament for the first time in this session in order to face that no confidence motion. Will Rahul Gandhi be allowed to attend on Tuesday morning, or is it likely to take even longer than that?
I do not expect that the speaker will keep him out. That would be a bit too much. We are still a parliamentary democracy the last time I checked. And if you have one of the highlights of a parliamentary democracy, a motion of confidence, being carried out in the absence of a man who, if not the leader of the opposition, is a significant challenger to the present setup, then Parliament will be the loser. There are conventions, there are precedents, but you can't have you can't stage Hamlet without the Prince of Denmark in it.
But let's be honest. Parliament has been staging many things over the last few sessions, where we've seen. I mean, this is our situation. We've had an entire state in conflict and turmoil for over 3 months. Parliament has not discussed it. They have, on the other hand, passed numerous very contentious bills without discussion. There is a constant appeal for the Prime Minister to attend Parliament, which he has not done. The Lok Sabha Speaker has at one point refused to come to Parliament because nobody's behaving according to him. So really, whether they're staging Hamlet or not, it is some kind of comedic tragedy, Mr. Hegde.
It is, and as somebody said, history repeats itself, first time as a tragedy, second time as a farce. This is not the first government that has had such a huge majority in Parliament. In my younger days, I remember the Rajiv Gandhi government, which had a 400-seat majority.
Yes.
But as days passed and as the Bofors issue came up and VP Singh got re-elected, there was that last stage of Parliament where the opposition completely boycotted Parliament, including in the BJP at that point of time. And it was left to the likes of Professor K.K. Tiwari, who was the loud-talking Congress parliamentarian of those days, to carry on the show or carry it on. But that Parliament had lost its legitimacy in that sense. There is a larger political legitimacy also beyond Parliament, which governs the lives of politicians. And I do hope that they do not stand on any little technicality. I would be very surprised if even wiser heads in the BJP or the larger Sangh Parivar were not to tell the people concerned that this has been dragged too long. You will not get much joy from dragging it out further. So put your best face on it and go out to battle. After all, how can you have a no confidence motion without a traditional hug and smile between Rahul Gandhi and Narendra Modi? What will Narendra Modi's worth be if Rahul Gandhi is not there to witness one more motion of no confidence being defeated? I think they will want him.
Mr. Hegde, I want to ask you a more serious question about the lack of functionality of Parliament, right? And as citizens, and I know that as someone who loves our constitution deeply, this is something that should concern us. We currently have a Parliament that has almost no role whatsoever for the opposition. The opposition has tried walking out, they still pass bills. The opposition has tried protesting, they continue, to table, pass, and move on as far as bills are concerned, without so much as the opposition. Now we have Sansad TV that is cutting the opposition out of the frame so that it's not on record at all. I mean, when the Home Minister was speaking on the Delhi, services bill, there were members of opposition who were putting placards in various corners of his frame so that someone can pay attention to them. And Sansad TV kept cutting it out of the frame. So how long can this continue for? And, where does that leave the democracy? The way we meant to, function.
It leaves parliamentary democracy in a very fragile place. I do hope for the good of this nation that whichever set of people is elected to parliament in the next elections, do realize that they have to set the tone for the nation. After all, in the early years of the republic, it was an opposition member who was speaking, and the prime minister of the day, Pandit Nehru, told his party members, listen to this man. He may be a future prime minister of India. And that opposition member was Atal Bihari Vajpayee. So there has been a respect for parliament in as much as uh, uh, trips abroad were rescheduled if parliament was in session. The prime minister would always be in parliament whenever necessary. It was not as if it was optional. It started in the states. I remember that in Tamil Nadu there were times then when Ms. Jayalalitha never attended the legislature, or Mr. Karunanidhi also, I think, as when in opposition did not attend, or things like that. But that was at the state level. Now this has come to the center, and it is a bad thing. The prime minister continues as prime minister so long as he has the confidence of the house. Right now, the confidence of the house can be enforced through the Anti-Defection Act, or the 10th schedule of the Constitution. But despite that, it can't be all a matter of whips and procedures. There is the persona of the nation speaking through the leader of the house in the House of Parliament, and there is also the leader of the opposition voicing in the voices of all those who could not who probably did not vote for the ruling party. And it is in that debate and discussion that the nation as a whole proceeds.
Yes. Mr. Hegde, we have a couple of questions from our audience with your permission. Subodh senses, what accountability does the Sessions Court judges have towards the Supreme Court for seemingly sanguine punishment on a debatable crime? So if I were to broaden that a little bit, we've had this happen several times where there is a judgment by a Sessions Court and the person goes right up to the Supreme Court before there are questioning of that. So is there accountability then, or does our system function on that kind of accountability?
See, judges can't be made answerable for their judgments. Otherwise, you lose the independence of the judiciary. The theory is that even if a judge commits a mistake, then it is corrected up in appeal. Sometimes the appellate process has to be stretched all the way to the Supreme Court. Nevertheless, most judges try to remain safe. They always root their judgments in precedents of the High Court and the Supreme Court. So when you sentenced somebody for 2 years, the maximum sentence possible under defamation, particularly when there was no precedent on that, maybe a quiet word in the ear is how judges do it. But more than that, there is no other sanction.
There's another question from Padmakar Shetty who says it's become a norm under the Modi government to pass bills without debate and discussion because it's a dangerous trend and a loss to citizens. There's more to this, isn't there, Mr. Hegde? Because it's about what goes on record and what's recorded by history. When opposition is sloganeering or walking out and the government continues or the treasury benches continues to pass bills, how will history remember this period?
Well, the history is not records it not only through the videos, but there is also the written record. The written record will show that there was no debate. Parliamentary debates over pieces of legislation have long ceased to be a thing in the past. I believe Rajiv Dhawan once wrote a book about reservation amendments, constitutional amendments, and how in the old days they were passed without much of a debate, with one member or two making a comment or all this. Now we have this particular session was set to be for 30 days, and some 31 major bills were all lined up for being passed. The time which could possibly be allotted to each of those bills was anyway short.
Yes.
Add to that, you have a no confidence motion. You have to set aside time for that. And if you adhere to the norm that no other parliamentary business would be done till the no confidence motion was disposed of, then possibly this session would not have seen any legislation whatsoever. A lot of work does happen in parliamentary committees, but nevertheless, the danger which we are all faced with is that if Parliament just rubber stamps anything that comes out of the legislative department of the government of India, we are essentially going back to rule by decree.
We have a question here from Parthasarthi who says, why are all judgments delivered in this way, only the higher court rather than the lower courts? But I'm not really sure I fully understand this question, but I do want to ask you this, if I may. The manner in which this judgment from the trial court came and the dismissal or the disqualification from Parliament happened within a 24-hour window sort of draws into question the functioning of that lower court and how independent, and you said it's important for courts to be independent, how independent that court truly is. I know many citizens are asking this question.
Yes, so see, as the structure stands now, the trial judge and the sessions judge do not have any immunity in the or security of tenure, in the sense that if there is any complaint about their services, they could be removed by the High Court and the governor of the state. It's only the High Court and the Supreme Court whose judges cannot be removed except by a process of parliamentary impeachment. So, to that extent, there is very little protection which is available to the judges of the state. Now, secondly, judges anywhere, including in the constitutional courts, which is the High Court and the Supreme Courts, are often a product of the society. They are, to use that American joke, what do you call a lawyer who once knew a politician? The answer is Your Honor. So, people become judges through a variety of circumstances. In the trial courts, of course, they pass exams and they become judges. But once you get onto the being a judge, there is a tendency to rely excessively on the executive. And some judges tend to get even more executive-minded than the executive itself. Judges are supposed to be the brakes in the system, brakes against despotism. Sometimes they end up as accelerators of despotism, or the function is forgotten of asking the inconvenient question. It's like your media also. Your media, as a fourth estate, was highly respected when it asked pertinent questions.
Yes.
But then we have seen so many of your channels becoming cheerleaders. Judges do not come from heaven. Judges and journalists do not come from heaven.
They certainly do not. I agree with you. You did say, of course, that if it had been said that no business should be conducted until Manipur is discussed, then the entire session would have gone without any business being conducted. But given what is happening in Manipur, doesn't Manipur merit an entire session or no session at all? Shouldn't we stop everything we are doing in the corridors of power until we fix what is wrong in Manipur. How are we okay with passing 31 bills instead of discussing Manipur?
That is a question of priorities of the nation and how the nation holds to account those whom it has chosen to govern. So, yes, Manipur is very important, and I must also make a disclosure here. I appear in the Manipur matter for one of the sides, so I will not discuss particulars. But what is very important in Manipur is how the writ of the state does not seem to be running anymore. Armories are being looted. Even today morning, there was an instance where arms kept in state armories get looted by people and then used. So if the writ of the state disappears, if the state cannot enforce its orders, then you can't expect courts also to go further. So that is what Parliament should be doing. That these kind of um, situations can only be resolved by action right at the top, by speech right at the top. There was a description of the job requirements of the US presidency, which required the US president to be a comforter in chief. You remember President Obama speaking after the shooting at Sandy Hook when children were shot. So he spoke for the nation. Today, we seem to have a nation with a prime minister who excels in oratory in the electoral battlefield, but is often silent when it truly matters. Faye, I can't hear you.
Forgive me. The Prime Minister's strategy, which is now emerging as a pattern, to not comment on anything uncomfortable, but instead only talk about forward-looking, optimistic, inaugurating, larger vision, blue skies events. Do you believe that that is letting down a portion of his portfolio, his job?
Obviously, if the Prime Minister had spoken when the first murder took place of a techie in Pune who looked visibly Muslim, would Muhammad Akhlaq have happened? If he had spoken when Muhammad Akhlaq had happened, would any of the other lynchings have gone on? And would we today be in a situation in Gurgaon and in Nu where the fire threatens to engulf our showpiece places where our industries of the future are on display? So there is who was it who said it? I think it was Firak who said, "अब अक्सर चुप चुप से रहे हैं, बस यूं ही कबूल अब खोले हैं, पहले फिराक को देखा होता अब बहुत कम बोले हैं." That is, and in Hamlet there is a sentence, and the rest is silence.
Unfortunately, that seems to be where we are right now. Thank you, Mr. Hegde, for giving us time and for helping us break down and understand what is going on. For our viewers who've joined in late, Mr. Hegde pointed out that it is right now it's obvious that Rahul Gandhi needs to be reinstated in Parliament as soon as possible. But how long they will take to do it is anyone's guess. It's possibly not advisable for the Speaker to take very long, because it is, at the end of the day, the Supreme Court that is watching. Besides which, we know that the no confidence motion will begin on Tuesday morning. So the question is, will Rahul Gandhi be in Parliament for that no confidence motion which we'll have to take a look at. I want to thank Samuel Sagar for the 1,000 rupees in our super chat. Thank you so much. That money will be used, of course, to pay salaries on our news team. And Meta Galaxy Infinity, thank you also for the 100 rupees. We're going to keep giving you more and more content, but do download our Beetroot News app. It's available. It's completely free on Android and iOS. It's at the bottom of your screen. We'll also put a link in the description of this video. It's our attempt to simplify the news and to remove from it all complication, all opinion, all clickbait, anything that makes the news, what it shouldn't be. Download the Beetroot app and show us your support. Thank you so much for watching. We're going to put more videos up on our YouTube now. We're trying to beef up the team that processes videos for YouTube, so you'll see more of us. Wish us very, very good luck for our new journey. Thank you for watching.